Calum, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
I just got done binge watching The Act. It was amazing.
You can be honest.
And it's so crazy to see you now because it's such a transformation. I hardly recognized you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. That means a lot.
Just going back to the very beginning, did you know about this story at all before you got the script?
A little bit. I'd seen like the headlines about the case, but I hadn't actually seen any of the detailed articles, or I hadn't seen the documentary either. But I did research all of it before I met with the producers.
Yeah, I read about that. You did a lot of behind the scenes work to prepare, reading all these books. Can you tell me about that process?
Yeah, well, it was a very intense process because I felt like there was a massive responsibility to get it right. People love this case. People are obsessed with these characters, and they're also portraying real people. And there's an added responsibility because they're still alive. So they might see this show, or their loved ones might see it, or the people affected might see it. So I spent a lot of time, about 2 months leading up to the beginning of the filming, at an autistic center, working with the specialist to make sure I got the autistic side of Nick correct. I read 5 books about autism. I ate like Nick leading up to it. I would eat peanut butter and pizza constantly. Gained a little bit of weight during that process. And I also, I just tried to embody him. So I would do things that I knew he would do. I would watch disturbing videos before I fell asleep at night to make sure I got in that mindset of some of the disturbing thoughts that he had. So I spent a lot of time trying to research and investigate who Nick really was and try to figure out this complex human being, because there's a lot of life he lived before this case, and there's a lot of life he's going to live after this, and I wanted to make sure I really captured the essence of who he was, apart from just the crime itself.
How would you describe him in that case? Like, it's hard to like pin down his exact motivation. How did you come to see why he did what he did?
That's a very complex question, but if I had to say what my research taught me, it's that he's a very sweet man who made a big mistake because he had some very complex issues that he dealt with.
Where do you draw the line in terms of that method acting? How much did you let it bleed into your personal life and your day-to-day off of set?
You try to find a line between the character and your personal life, but it does get blurred, especially when you're trying to go to those intense places. I found myself the months that we were filming in a different place. I didn't talk to my family and friends as much. I really just focused on this character and trying to stay in his headspace. Of course, Joey was helpful. She liked to show me memes at the end of the day and made me laugh, which was great. But overall, though, it was a very intense process, and it did affect me more than I thought it would going into it.
How long did it take to shake off afterwards?
About 5 minutes before this interview was when I finally shook it all off.
Yeah, what was it like working with Joey? I imagine, because you guys really both transformed and got into this totally new place together.
Yeah, she's amazing. I mean, she's unbelievable. One of our first scenes together, we both had to cry. We had to break down and get very emotional. And that was one of the first days we'd met. We hadn't met much before then. And I just was so impressed with how dedicated she was to this character. And it didn't feel like I was ever acting opposite Joey. It felt like I was acting opposite Gypsy.
And I'm sure she felt the same way too, because, I mean, your mannerisms are completely different. How did you embody Nick and get into how he walks, how he moves, how he talks?
Just extensive research and a lot of preparation ahead of time. It was about 2 months before we started filming where I didn't want to work on anything else. I just wanted to focus on this project. And I prepped it like it was a play. And I would spend hours just trying to figure out specific moments in his story and how to capture the essence of it. In terms of tapping into those other parts of him, the key was empathy, and having a lot of empathy for all the characters in general. I don't think you can play someone, even someone who's done something that could be quote-unquote criminal. I think you need to have some empathy for the person and their actions, or else you can't portray them properly.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was watching it, I felt a lot of empathy for you and the other characters. It's so clear why they're doing what they're doing and that they're just human and have been affected by the people before them, and they're just like replicating all these patterns that they've learned that are all they know.
Yeah. I mean, most stories, there's a protagonist and an antagonist. And what I loved about this project is they blurred those lines. And they said people are are good and bad, and they sometimes are good and bad at the exact same time.
Yeah.
And sometimes when they're trying to do what they think is right, they sometimes end up doing something horrible in the process.
Right, because Nick is totally committed that what he's doing is being the hero.
Exactly, and he is the hero of his own story in this very strange way. Unfortunately, his story was just a little bit skewed, and I wish it had gone a different way.
Was there a day on set or a scene that you're most proud of, or was like most challenging for you that you felt good about afterwards?
There was a scene where Joey and I are in a closet together, and it's when we finally get caught by the SWAT team. And that was a very important moment for me, because for both of them, it was their last moment of freedom before they were in jail. And for Nick, knowing that he was likely going to get a life sentence, it was his last moment of freedom at all. And so we really dedicated ourselves to that one moment. And while we were filming, it took about 4 hours to film that scene, 3 or 4 hours, we didn't leave that closet. We just stayed in there, and we stayed in that moment. And every time we did a new take, we would stay in that state, and they would just change the cameras and change the lights. So we just cried our eyes out for hours. And when the SWAT team came in, we didn't know what they were going to do. We wanted to be real, because we really want to make sure we captured the essence of the fear that they were feeling. So that was very challenging. The next day we woke up, and Joey and I both had just bloodshot eyes, and we couldn't sleep much that night. It was very intense.
Wow. When you have a scene like that, like what are you doing in the couple hours before? What headspace are you getting into?
I was looking at some of the crime photos that we had available to try to remember what he was thinking about, and I was just really feeling a lot of empathy for him in that moment, because despite committing a crime, he was still very fearful, and he was terrified for his life, and it was his last moment to be a free person. And that kiss that he shares with Gypsy is his last kiss as a free man, and that really that affected me on a very personal level. Despite what someone did to get that kind of sentence, you can't help but feel for that person in that moment.
And congratulations, you're starting to get a little bit of buzz leading up to award season in the fall. What are your wildest dreams for like this project? Getting recognition.
I would love to see Joey and Patricia get celebrated for their work. They did a phenomenal job, and they put their heart and soul into this. And I would love to see them get some love in award season, and the whole crew as well, and the directors and producers. We had a truly incredible team. So if I could be watching them step up on that stage, that would mean a lot.
Yeah, and this was absolutely a breakout project for you. So now that you're closing this chapter, where would you ideally want to go next?
I want to continue telling great stories with great storytellers. This really raised the bar in terms of the kinds of projects I've been working on. This was unbelievable. I mean, the talent I was surrounded with every day was just phenomenal. I want to continue being in the presence of actors that I look up to and continue to try to keep up to them.
Do you have like a bucket list actor or actress that you want to work with? Director?
I do. Tilda Swinton. I get mistaken for Tilda Swinton a lot, so it'd be fun for us to do a buddy comedy or something.
Yeah, just like body swap comedy or something.
Yeah,
like that.
and see if the audience can tell the difference.
Yeah, might not be able to.
I don't think so. Throw Conan in and there'll be 3 of us. You can't tell who's who.
If you love that video, you're going to love everything on the Access YouTube channel, so hit the subscribe button. You can thank me later. Hit it.